Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming. This is my favourite night of the year at the Art Gallery, this particular Art After Hours when I interview winners, and sometimes we're lucky enough to get the sitter as well. And this year we scored the double whammy with Fiona and Penelope on the one night. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you and to say to both of them, first of all, congratulations,
Thank
Fiona.
you.
And Penelope, well sat, I would say. Or stood, should I say. Emma was just saying that the Archibald was instituted in 1921, which makes it 93 years old. And in that time, since 1921, 9 women have won. 9 women have won in 93 years. Of them, 5 painted a female subject. And in that, there were a couple of self-portraits. So we have a couple of rare birds here tonight. And I think we should be very glad, and there should be more of it. So let's get on with the conversation. First of all, why Penelope, Fiona? Why did you choose Penelope?
Wow.
So embarrassing.
Well, look, I first saw Penelope about 6 years ago at a gallery opening, and I was really struck by her. I saw her across the room, and actually she was wearing these stockings, and she really stood out to me, and I felt really compelled by her, actually. And
by her physical appearance.
Yeah, she just had a presence, and it's not often that people really stand out to you. And I asked a friend who she was and found out, how amazing she is. And I also knew, obviously, Harry Seidler, and I'd followed his work over the years, and I just thought that she would make a really compelling subject. And that was 6 years ago, but it took me quite a time to kind of come around and get the courage to actually ask her to...
How do you ask somebody? Do you write them a letter or an email or something?
I sent
An email, I think.
I sent Penelope an email, and and I kind of waited for the response, and it eventually came, and she said yes, and I was thrilled, and Penelope said she had watched my work over the years, which...
Yeah, no,
So
well,
how long had you known Fiona's work?
Well, I first saw Fiona's work at the Museum of Contemporary Art in the Primavera show, which they exhibit work of emerging artists, 2005, and I always admired it, and I knew all about it. So when I got this email, I was pretty excited, actually.
Had you been painted before?
No.
You hadn't? This was the first time?
And it took me about 1 minute to reply. And I was really excited because I knew that she was, highly placed in other Archibalds. And I just had a feeling then this is going to be very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea what it might end up looking like? Did you have any vision of it at all?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No.
So it looks, and people have talked about your work a lot and made a lot of comments about the mysterious quality, about the elusive quality, about the feeling of sort of mystery, I guess, about this painting and about others. You're in the Sulman. You're a finalist in the Sulman too. Did you approach both these tasks similarly?
I think so, yeah, I did. I mean, I guess initially when I thought about painting Penelope, I thought of painting her as she is in these incredible stockings, and I guess that's what it drew me initially to her to do that. But, a lot of my work is about memory and history, and I often take people to landscapes that have that kind of history to them. Have a history to that particular space. So in this instance, I took Penelope to her iconic house in Clara, and we spent a few times. I think I went twice actually to the house, and we eventually kind of went down to the back of the house where there's this gully with a little waterfall, and there was just this moment that Penelope glanced back at the house and kind of reflected that she hadn't been down there for a very long time and seen the house from that angle. And I was just lucky enough, I guess, at that moment to capture that.
So this house, the Kalara house, is one that Harry Seidler designed.
We both designed.
You
Both
d-
designed.
so-
They both designed, yes.
That was going to be my next question. Did you have any input into the design?
Yes, indeed. Well, I was a qualified architect by then. 1967, we moved in, and we had won the Wilkinson Award that year, actually. We had Max Dupin photograph the house, and he had me standing down in about the exact spot, and I was wearing a Marimekko dress, and I was thinking about that photograph. And
When
that's-
Fiona said, when you
Yeah,
glanced up at the house.
Yes, I was. I was thinking about that almost 50 years ago, and yeah, I remember it distinctly.
Yeah.
So it was, she's correct that I probably stopped chattering.
Yeah. Did you take photographs
Yeah, I did.
of Penelope at that time?
Yeah, I did.
And do any of them capture that moment when she's looking back at
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I obviously my work references photography. I mean, the way that I work with the airbrush, requires that kind of research in a way. Like I kind of need to. My practice is very studio based, but I like to take the subject to a particular landscape to kind of record a response to that place. And, in this instance, it was kind of, it's impossible for me to kind of work in the exact landscape. So, yeah, I do. I work from photographs to.
Do you
make
think
it
of
work.
yourself as essentially a landscape painter who happens to put figures into that landscape?
No, I mean, I think I'm a bit of both, really. I think they really work together. They never really. I never really show them separately. Really, I think they
Yeah.
both kind of vibrate off each other.
Who's the subject of the Sulman?
Well, that actually is an interesting story. I found this book from the 1950s it was listing all of the Australian bushrangers, and the first one listed was a man named John Black Caesar, and who was a African slave in America who was freed to England to then subsequently be a convict sent to
So
Australia
he was a
as a
slave in
convict.
America and then became a convict
Yeah.
there and came out here.
That's right, yeah.
You could call it an unfortunate life. couldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And but he's listed as our very first bushranger, and he has incredible connections with different stories of Pemulwuy, the Rainbow Warrior, and he apparently shot him at some point, and he was a fugitive. But he also had a relationship with a woman called Anne Power, who came out on the Lady Juliana, which was a ship that was of mostly female prostitutes, and they had a child together. So that work in the Sulman is kind of referencing, I guess, that story. Just looking at it in a more broader kind of way. Yeah.
Both these paintings are done with airbrush. Is this your chosen form all the time these days?
It is these days, yeah.
Tell me why.
It's just something that I guess developed. I was playing around with spray cans and paint and all different other kinds of materials. I wanted something that was quite visceral, I guess, and something that had an effect physically on the viewer. And the airbrush, it sort of allows you to drop things in and out of focus quite seamlessly. So
How does it work? I mean, what sort of gadget is
it's
it?
like a small gun that you put paint in the top of, and it's attached to a compressor, and it blows out a fine mist of paint. A little bit like a spray can, but much finer.
Don't you get airborne particles?
Yeah, you do.
What do you do about that? I mean, you wear a mask, presumably.
Well, in the past I have worn a mask, but I've now... I came in contact with some airbrush kind of boffins, and they built me this spray wall which basically sucks the paint straight away from me, the airborne paint. So it's sort of got these big exhaust fans at the back of this wall, this 6 metre wall, and so it all just immediately gets sort of sucked away. So I don't need to wear the mask anymore, which is quite a relief.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can achieve the look that you want all the time with. I mean, can you achieve different kinds of looks with the airbrush?
Yeah. I think with my landscape works, I approach it with a different kind of hand. I guess it's not so. I guess with the Penelope work, it's a lot smoother. There's a lot of out of focus, but I also, with my landscapes, I do approach it in a different way. It's more like daubing bits of airbrush colour onto the canvas.
And Penelope, you, I know, are and must be intensely aware of landscape, because you're interested not just in paintings but in architecture and buildings in the landscape.
Well, I hope so. No, I am. And when Fiona came to the house, I originally assumed that she'd paint me in an architectural setting, but her preference was in the landscape, and I was happy about that too. Always imagined myself a bit of a bush girl, climbing trees, No, I was very happy about that.
What do you think of the painting? What does it say to you?
What did it say to me? Well, I got a bit of a shock when I first saw it. Thought I looked a bit fierce, but no, it's remarkable actually. It's fantastic.
I'd say wistful more than fierce, actually.
Well, it's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a portrait that has that intensity somehow, but then I'm a bit prejudiced, I think.
But it has been an extraordinarily successful,
what's
popular
amazing
choice
is that there's been no controversy. Every time there's an Archibald, this one should have won and that one didn't win, and everyone seems to like it. The art aficionados like it, and the populist press likes it, and it's a winner.
We've been very lucky, yeah.
Fiona and I were a little bit worried last week because everyone liked it so much, and the odds were going down. You could look it up on the betting, betting, and the odds kept dropping, and favourite never wins.
We should have put some money on it, I think.
We should have put some money on in the beginning.
Yeah.
Too late. This time last week was too late.
I want to ask you, Fiona and Penelope, to your thoughts on. Well, I'll tell you what I thought when I saw the painting, and have seen others of your paintings in images that I've looked at online. There's a not a very distant relationship with Bill Henson and his landscapes. Would you accept that?
Yeah, I guess I would. I wouldn't say, though, that I particularly look at him, but I think it has been said before, actually.
Oh, has it? I'm not original.
Well,
damn it.
No, I have heard that before, though. But
what do you think, Penelope? I'm just thinking.
Yes, well, bearing in mind that Bill Henson's a photographer. But I guess...
Well,
they're sort of mystical.
His photographs look like paintings, actually, I think.
Well, they do, yes. There's a mystical, sort of surreal element in them.
Yeah. Where does this landscape thing happen with you? You were talking to me before we started about an essay that you read about Australian Gothic.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Well, I guess when I initially started the airbrush paintings... I'd been having these trips down the south coast and driving past Belanglo State Forest, and
where the murders,
the backpacker murders happened, actually, and I kind of felt like the landscape shifted, when you went past that very specific part of the landscape, and I was just interested in how that kind of place became paranoid all of a sudden. Because of what you knew about that particular space.
Because if you didn't know it, you'd think it was a beautiful forest.
That's right, yeah. So I was kind of interested in that kind of ambiguity that existed there. And, and I think Australia has always kind of been, even before it was discovered, or kind of confirmed as a place, it was imagined as this place peopled by monsters. And then, with the subsequent transportation of convicts, it came embedded as this dark underworld, and I guess that's kind of become a bit of the backdrop of a lot of the work that I'm making.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think about that, Penelope? That sort of notion of Australia being...
Well, one thinks about these things not only in Australia but many countries. You go and see war graves and battle scenes and it's all beautifully green and new trees, and the history lingers on somehow. Belanglo State Forest, of course, is still in its primeval state, I suppose. Must have a few stories there. Maybe some nice ones too. But there's very little landscape left in the world that doesn't have big stories attached to it.
Yeah, that's right.
We like to think it's all pure and clean, and it is in its way because it replenishes all the time.
But then you just have to see the battlefields, for instance, in France to realise,
Exactly,
these
yeah.
blood-sodden places. It's incredible. Tell us a bit more about Max Dupain and,
Max
and
Dupain.
the Seidler relationship with Max Dupain.
I want to give a big plug to... There's another exhibition here at the moment, a Max Dupain Paris series, which is wonderful photos that Max took in Paris when he went with Harry to photograph the Australian Embassy in 1978, I think it was. It'll say down there. And he took the photos because Harry insisted on Max taking his photos as much as he could. And he insisted that Max go with him, although Max did not like to travel. The only place he'd ever been was New Guinea before, but Harry insisted that he go, and they went off together. They photographed the embassy, and then the next few days Max went around and photographed on his own Paris as he saw it, a fairly limited area, although Harry took him out to Chantilly, I think that's in it. And that was nice. We never saw the photos. And then about 6 months later, he arrived at our house on the weekend with this beautiful folio of prints as a gift. And there's a very nice letter down there too that he wrote. And fantastic photos of Paris. They're
incredibly
amazing,
evocative, aren't they?
Very evocative. The Max preferred black and white photography. Its compositions are elegant, and the shadows and the chiaroscuro, if you might say, just fantastic. And I had these photos for many years, and I thought they should be in a public place, and that's why they're here.
So they're on, and
they're on display now, and it's free. It's free.
and they're actually beautiful. Like really,
beautiful,
that you go
yeah.
down 2 levels to the photography.
Is it 2 or 1? I don't know. Anyway, it's just down there.
Yeah, and
the
it's
photography gallery.
Really beautiful. Beautiful pictures of Paris.
No,
really
they are
beautiful.
fantastic, yeah.
Again, there's a mystery about them. I
Yeah.
love things that are not stated baldly.
Straightforward, yes.
So-
Well, Harry and Max had a very special relationship, and I think it comes through in all that.
Fiona, when it comes to how people look at your picture of Penelope, what do you care if people make of it something that you haven't seen? Are you keen for it to be seen in a certain way?
I think probably mostly the person who I wanted, to experience it in a positive light was Penelope, actually. I mean, more than any other portrait I've made, it was actually quite stressful in a sense,
Why?
making the
Just
work.
tell me why.
Because, you're kind of given a special privilege, to kind of... And I felt very privileged to be allowed into Penelope's world and to make this painting. And I guess I've caught Penelope at a very unguarded kind of moment in that work. And, I want to make works that are evocative and compelling and startling in a way. So I guess in that regard, probably Penelope was the person I was most concerned about. However everyone else experiences it is out of my control, really.
Do you see yourself in the line of Australian landscape painters, in a sort of a continuing arc of that tradition?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I have spent a lot of time down at Bundanon where Arthur Boyd made a lot of work, and now there's this incredible residency down there that he bequeathed that space there to the nation. Yeah, and I go there almost every year actually to make work.
What is it about? I mean, isn't it interesting? It's not that far from Belanglo.
Yeah.
Really.
No.
And yet Belanglo contains all of that stuff that we know.
Yeah.
And Bundanon contains something completely different, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I've always been really engaged with the works that he's made and the stories that he's told in that landscape. And I guess, for me, I wanted to sort of reinvest my own memory and history and archive into that space as well.
How do you choose people you want to paint?
They're usually people I know, actually. They're all my friends, actually, that appear in the work. So I've got this incredible archive of my friends in my work. And I think that I couldn't do it any other way. It has to be somebody that I know or that I'm kind of enraptured by in some way, as I was with Penelope. To make the work. Otherwise, I don't think I could make a really good painting.
Well, I think you did it. You've captured it incredibly. I mean, I think it's an incredible painting. Do you, Penelope? Do you think it's?
Oh, I do. Yes.
Everything, every bit of what you wanted it to be.
Well, I just don't know what I wanted it to be, but I knew it'd be good because Fiona's a good artist. As I said before, I did get a bit of a surprise when I first saw it. But a nice surprise.
Well, thank you both for talking to us today, and I'd urge you all to have a look at the Max Dupain exhibition of photographs of Paris because they're just gorgeous. Thank you. And
Thank you,
join me in
Margaret.
thanking these
Thank
two.
you.